Hello. In my previous video about using entropy as a method to um, build a brain off of, I figured out how to elaborate more on how exactly entropy would be reduced. Now, um, entropy is how much you can compress information so that you, or well, I saw a video and it said entropy is a change in information content. So how much you know is of what of if the information can be compressed so that you take less resources to know more about the world is how the brain functions in its format for our evolution as a human species. Now, if you could see that picture, it's the state each it's a feedback loop because when one thing changes, it sends a signal to another thing, and that signal tells the state of that node or module to change. And that's how basically computers work, is it has to operate by changing the states and the order of those states in a big network. Now, the network, or at least the algorithms, are loops. The loops aren't physical in the CPU, but the loops are the way the information is arranging itself within the CPU. And so that's what the brain does when it's growing up from an infant from a child to a teenager and an adult. Now, because because we are feedback, what happens inside our heads is changing slower than what's happening in the environment. So when we synchronize with the environment, or we make decisions on the environment, it's drawing information from far away to a closer position towards the module and the state of the module, or the node, or whatever characterization you need for building models. And so like when we see an object and it's far away, and we can respond to that object by like Kurzweil says, if we see a cat that's going to eat us over there, then we go in a different direction. And so since life is dependent upon consuming energy and avoiding dissipation of energy, this is how it's achieved, by being able to synchronize the far away consequences with the near-term consequences. Now if you look at this, there are connections that are closer, and then there are connections that are far away. And that's what's happening in the brain, and that's what's happening in civilizations, and that's what's happening between galaxies. Now, these feedback loops are all telling or how an organism forms a network within its ecosystem, it's always trying to gauge which move will get me where. And so if it can grab hold of part of the future is what it's doing. It's grabbing hold of part of what can be considered a future state, seeing those states and which one leads to entropy or death or life or a better metabolizing of its surroundings. Now, because the far away connections are changing slower than the nearest connections. So that means that when the brain is forming connections, the gray matter is always rewiring itself, while the white matter grows slowly. And so that's the local connections have to know what to do in that situation where the slower parts are the ones in the future. That helps it predict its present into the state that it needs to be in that scenario. So I guess that well, this is my new model for how the states will change from my previous video. You see, let's say that in a simulation, a parallel processing simulation, we have some node values, and these node values are arranged in their relationships to each other, which are these relationships are the distance it takes for a node to send a signal. And so if we have it in a time variable and also a current variable like the strength of the signal, then we can record the signals from the far away connections and then use that to do our local generation of sending signals to the local groups that you're part of. And this is sort of like how the internet works, and Facebook and internet forums. We are constantly giving and then taking the information. It's changing us, and then it synchronizes all of them together. Because what we're doing in the present moment, is radically transformed by the outside signals that are far away. Because the outside signals will tell when to fire, when to connect to that connection, or when to connect to this connection. And so, as Kurzweil said in his book, How to Create a Mind, the Markov models, the hidden Markov models, are doing this, but they're doing it in such a way as to know the sequence. What local signals are predicting the faraway signals, and that's how you connect prediction of how you reach into the future to get your prediction, and then decrease entropy. Because when we're able to grab this information, when we're able to grab this information, we lower entropy because we get the information is fantastic. It's telling us what to do. And so back to the computer model. The computer model in the parallel processing would just have time variables of how the nodes would try to predict each other. And so let's say that a node has like 100 close connections and 100 far away connections. Now depending on how far away it is the rate at which those connections change. Because even if you have a piece of information from the future, what if it's the near-term future? What if you have to think longer? You have to find the sequence of events flowing back in time that will show you how to synchronize your local connections. So in the computer model, the connections are time variable. That's why uploading into a computer is sort of dependent on the length at which the brain waves are synchronizing in the formation they're at. So uploading would have to account for how fast we are processing ourselves to give us a frame of reference for how we experience time. Now, well, I'll show you the picture again. So, by looking at this picture, we can tell that these connections from my previous video are randomizing. Now, I said that when the entropy is high, it randomizes, it prunes, and when it's low entropy, it grows them. So that means that the local connections are randomizing faster than the far away connections. And so this way, the present, the past, the present, and the future can be determined by memory synchronizing with the state, synchronizing with the future state. And basically that's how the entropy becomes the driving force for intelligence. And so basically if we want to build a computer that's going to become intelligent, we need to give it feedback from far away and from locally. So just like in Facebook and Twitter, where we're all interacting in this giant network and we're localized and the brain is doing the exact same thing, and that's happening in the outer environment. And that's how knowledge, when shared, it's exponential. Or it's that's the law of accelerating returns, because the feedback loops are being produced faster and faster. So we're able to refine and refine and refine the methods by which we predict the future, and that's why intelligence of people has been increasing from the printing press to the telephone to the railroads to electricity, steam power, the internet, and soon with virtual reality. Because if we can communicate across the distance, not only through webcams, but also in a 3D environment, that refines how much we have to, how the feedback loops become faster and faster. And that's basically it for how I think that well, it's it that my model of intelligence requires the connections to lower entropy in the way I've already explained.